Yep, it's on now.
All right. So good morning, everybody. It's 11:47 a.m. on Thursday, May 7th, 2020. Had to think about it there for a minute. So this is the board meeting for the Englewood Environmental Foundation. So Lorraine, if you could first call off the roll call for board members.
Okay. Maria, can you please turn on your video?
It is saying, if I hit this, it says stop video. So I assume that you saw it.
No.
Oh, I know why it's not, because it needs to be on my laptop. Okay.
Yay.
Brad just informed me, helped me with that exact same issue.
Okay, great. Thank you.
New IT help desk person.
Yeah, right. You don't want that.
Do you see my mug now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so Maria DeAndrea.
Here.
Thank you. Maria Sabata.
Here.
Dorothy Hargrove.
Here.
Allison McKinney Brown.
Yeah, Allison might not be joining us today.
Okay.
And then
All right.
you recognize everybody else who is present on the meeting. If you could just say your name, if you could.
Brad Power, Director of Community Development.
Dan Paremba, Chief Redevelopment Officer within the Community Development Department.
John Vobaril, Community Development Senior Planner.
Great, thank you. So we have a couple items on the agenda, but we'll start with, I believe, approval of the minutes from the last meeting. We'll get the agenda up there. So yes, we had our last meeting was on April 13th, 2020. So if you want to take a minute to look those over, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
This is Maria Sabata. I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Or
Aye.
the roll, please.
Maria DeAndrea.
Aye.
Dorothy Hargrove.
Aye.
Maria Sabata.
Aye.
Great,
Thank
motion
you.
carried. So then we have an opportunity for the public to speak. I don't see anybody on the line, but if there are, if you could recognize yourselves or come forward. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to new business, which the first item was the draft bylaw amendments. So if you could pull those up, Lorraine. So very similar to eMERF, which we discussed yesterday. The city attorney has modified, this would be an amendment to the existing bylaws to identify the positions that are make up the members of the board. In this case, so she's clarifying, as you can see there under 4-A, that it's the positions are Director of Public Works, the Community Development, or excuse me, this is in the way. So, okay, the Finance Director, the Director of Public Works, and Director of Community Development, hereinafter Board of Directors. And if you could scroll down or make this a little bit smaller so we can see. So with the vacancy then, okay, maybe a little bit bigger.
One more.
No, just, yeah, no, just scroll down. Right, so let's go to paragraph 4G there. So upon a vacancy, that the city manager or the deputy city manager would fill that interim. Okay. So I guess the question is, you know, Brad, given your desire to, which we took you off the board, does it make sense to continue to have the director of community development listed as a member, or should it be someone else as we make this change? Thoughts
Well,
on?
I formally resigned
Yeah.
as the director of EEF effective January 1, 2019,
Mhm.
with the express purpose of being able to not create any semblance of appearance of conflict of interest between my department role and the board role, obviously related to the city center redevelopment project, which is going to be ongoing for several years into the future. So I don't anticipate coming back on the board during that time and during the lifetime of EEF's association with that project, in order to preserve my ability to serve that project as community development director. I would recommend that there's somebody on an alternate be either appointed, or in this special circumstance, that take place, or somebody other than the community development director be a member of this board. I think that the development relationship between the community development director role and the community development director's service on this board, I don't think that's correct. I think it's the potential for an appearance of conflict, not an actual one, is too strong, and I would recommend an alternative director be appointed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, you know, just even having your title listed in here, even though you have resigned, still, you know, I mean, we can explain it, but it doesn't, I think we need 3 members basically. So Dorothy, I don't know if you have any thoughts about continuing to, you know, maybe it's instead of the director of community development, it's the deputy city manager or city manager.
I would highly recommend not having the city manager. I would say city manager or deputy city manager, or, well, the deputy city manager or the city, or a designee appointed by the city manager, and leave it that open, so that we can, in the absence of a deputy city manager, the city manager could appoint someone appropriately. I think that gives the maximum clarity and latitude to the decision.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could just clarify, and if I were to leave or whatever happened, whoever would take over for me as community development director would have the exact same conflict, or the potential for conflict that was created and was the basis of my resignation. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear about that.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we can recommend, I see the last page here that we're currently looking at still references EMERF too, so we'll have to change that. But I think I will circle back with the city attorney and make those changes as we've discussed. And then we'll bring this back again. Well, I guess, is it okay if you're comfortable with those changes? Do you want to approve that now? So basically, to summarize, if you could go up a page, please, Lorraine. So under the 4A, so we would list it as the finance director, the director of public works, and the deputy city manager. Then under, oh, go ahead.
The deputy city man, yeah, that's right, and the deputy city manager.
Mm-hmm. So those are the 3 directors.
Right.
Then under 4G, when the vacancy occurs for one of those 3 positions, then
The city manager will not serve in such position, but he will appoint a designee.
correct, yeah.
Would be my recommendation.
Mm-hmm. So we can take that sentence out that, well, any individual named by the city manager to serve in such position Oh,
I can't unmute. Undo that. No, stop it.
Oh,
Who are you talking to?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can now.
Yes.
I cannot, I've been on mute for like the last 10 minutes. I've not been able to get off mute. I've been yelling at this screen. So now,
Of some art in the front circle.
oh,
you can't
so,
see your lovely face.
so it already says that the manager, city manager has the right to appoint anyone else, or the city manager or deputy city manager can step into the role. So it already says exactly what it is you guys want. Under vacancy, any individual named by the city manager to serve in such position on an interim basis shall serve as a director until such position is filled on a permanent basis. If no individual is named, the city manager or the deputy city manager shall serve as director until such position is filled by the city of Inglewood. I think it's already got what it is you need for the city manager.
Okay.
And that's why Dorothy, serving as a deputy city manager, has been able to continue in the role.
If you go up to 4A, that would be the question, do we want to include community development there? I think Brad's argument is no, but perhaps we leave it the way it is and the vacancy takes care of the issue.
everyone, that would be my perspective.
Okay.
I wonder if you change community development specifically to another department head, if that might suggest a modification to the bylaws that even though the bylaws don't require you to take it to council, that it might be interpreted as a major change of the bylaws. Whereas right at the moment, you're not making any major changes to the bylaws.
Just clarifying. Okay.
Yeah, you're just clarifying who the people are. So even though it's very clear Brad's done, he's not stepping back in. If you were to pick another director from the city and put them in that role without it running first through the city council, I could see a lot of backlash.
But so when I read paragraph 4G, he hasn't vacated his position though. So technically the city manager can appoint somebody else to fill it.
Could we be specific and say vacated their position on the board?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good clarification. Okay, so if I were to change it to say vacated their position with the city or vacated their position on the board, make sure that anywhere that deputy city manager is included, that it actually says deputy city manager, not assistant city manager.
I think that you've got that covered. But
yeah, I didn't think the city manager or assistant city manager is actually in here, but still, I'll double check for both those things. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to put in there? I went ahead and clarified the notice provision because the reality is you guys are emailing notice and probably have been since email was invented. So the idea that you're having to mail letters to the last known personal address of each director kind of struck me as something that we could go ahead and change without raising too many eyebrows.
I have just a typo in 4G.
Okay.
It would say Director of Community Development in the middle there.
okay.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I crossed it out and it shouldn't have.
And then Lauren, can you go to the next page? I wanted to read that paragraph 5E. So Dorothy, were you thinking that you don't want the city manager Oh, to serve even in an interim position? Or should we put in the city manager or deputy city manager again or something?
Yeah, that, I would recommend the city manager not ever be on the board of EEF. You know, I think it's a bad policy. So the city manager shall designate either the deputy city manager or someone else to serve in such position.
Are you seeing that, Allison?
No.
Okay.
Paragraph 6, 5E.
Okay.
Paragraph.
So maybe we just put in similar language to the paragraph up above that we just talked about.
Okay, I can do that. I'll just
Okay.
copy it down. It seems really repetitive, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then right below that, so then that was the last paragraph that you're changing in this amendment. And then
Yeah.
we just need to do, instead of EMRF, it should be EEF there in that as
Sorry.
approved by the board of directors.
Okay, I'm making that change on the original as we're talking.
Okay. So any other changes people see? Are you comfortable? Do we need to review that again?
I think it looks good with those changes.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Me too.
Okay.
Can we approve it with those verbal changes, or should we wait for the final copy and have the board approve again?
Ended.
Say that again, Allison. We were cut off.
You can approve as amended.
Okay. I'm comfortable doing that myself. So
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve the third amendment to the bylaws as we've discussed here, and that will be provided by the city attorney's office in its final form.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All those, Lorraine, if you could take a roll call, please.
Who was it that seconded the motion?
I did.
Dorothy, thank you. Maria DeAndrea,
Aye.
Maria Zapata,
Aye.
Dorothy Hargrove.
Aye.
Great, thank you. All right, so then our next agenda item. So we have not had a formal contract with our outside legal counsel, Spencer Fain, who were represented by Mr. Mike Miller. So he did provide me with a scope of work in the form of an engagement letter. And the city attorney's office has reviewed that, as have I, and we're recommending that we go ahead and sign that so that we can enter into a formal contract, which would serve as, the engagement letter would serve as a formal contract between the parties, between EEF and our outside legal counsel. Any
Just
questions on that?
to weigh in on that, to let you know, he's written this beautifully. It allows the EEF board to basically end this agreement with just verbal notice. So it's not, if at any point in the future, if there was a decision that there wasn't a need for outside counsel, then this agreement is immediately it can be terminated immediately. So that's a really nice provision. But it also makes it very clear that the relationship is between the EEF board and the attorney. It is not between the city and the attorney. And I think that's important because it clarifies that typically, whether you know this or not, typically the rules under the rules of ethics require that every client be represented by their attorney. So another attorney can't represent a represented client. Now, if a client says, I want to have someone represent me for this purpose and this purpose and this purpose, then the client can engage 3 different attorneys. But the attorney can only work for their client. So it's very clear that Mike Miller's client is the EEF board. It is not the city of Inglewood. And that's critical because it separates his role from my role and allows him to advise you separate and apart from me, which I think is for the type of, the fact that you're a corporate board serving a municipal corporation, I think that that's critical to define that distinction.
I have no objection to this. Is the next step to move to accept the engagement letter?
Yeah, I think the motion would be is to authorize signature of the engagement letter by myself
Okay.
on behalf of EEF.
I would so move.
And I will second. This is Maria Sabata.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second. So Lorraine, if you could get the votes.
Maria DeAndrea,
Aye.
Maria Sabata,
Aye.
Dorothy Hargrove.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That passes. So our next agenda item is a discussion regarding the pre-development agreement with SKB for redevelopment of portions of the Inglewood City Center. So I'll pass it over to Dan Poremba.
Thanks, Maria, and thanks to you all for allowing us to schedule this meeting. Many thanks to Lorraine for all your help coordinating it. And this item is a continuation of prior discussions. We met at the February 4th EEF board meeting and discussed the first in the series of 3 agreements, which was the exclusive negotiating agreement between EEF and the city and the firm of SKB. You may remember that both EEF and the city are parties to these 3 agreements. So we're on now to the second of the 3. We've had a very nice experience, good progress working with SKB over the last 90 days. And as anticipated, we've moved on and put together what is now called a pre-development agreement, or PDA. We had a solid briefing with City Council Monday evening. They understand exactly where we are on this, seem to be fully informed, and we're scheduled for the May 18th City Council meeting for their approval of the PDA itself. So as far as your action today, there's really 2 items. One is your approval of the pre-development agreement, and second is your approval by motion also of a recommendation to council that they approve the same agreement. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but really won't, I think it's pretty straightforward. Won't take you through the details of it. Everything that we are doing under the pre-development agreement is largely a continuation in greater detail of tasks that were initiated under the ENA. This agreement is anticipated, generally speaking, to take us through the end of the year, at which time our goal is to have a master development agreement as well as the related redevelopment plan for review and approval by both the EEF board and the city council. The only caution there is that, there could be some time delays that are COVID-19 related that could push the consideration of that master development agreement into, I would say, the first quarter of 2021. But for now, we want to stick with our original schedule, and our development partner is committed. They're enthusiastic. They're devoting the resources they need, and So I think that timing, as far as it goes for this recommendation, still holds. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I don't have a question per se, just a comment. I know at the May 4th meeting, there was a question about the length of EEF lifetime and its relationship to this, which you answered, I think, but to make sure that you include that information in the presentation on the 18th for the record, that everyone understands, that relationship between EEF and this PDA would be useful.
That's a good point. And just for everyone's benefit, the general concept is we're going to explore transitioning a good number, if not all, of EEF's responsibilities to the private sector developer. That's going to require, quite a bit of exploration, and we're going to have to figure out how to do it legally. But I think that's kind of been the overall goal that was addressed in the RFQ, RFP, and the vetting process for the master developer. And so it'll be something that we'll be returning to you and talking about as time goes on. And Dorothy, that's a great point. We'll cover that for the May 18th meeting as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the execution of the, oh, go ahead. So I'll move to approve the execution of the pre-development agreement between the city and EEF and SKB.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Lorraine, if you could please call the vote.
Maria DeAndrea,
Aye.
Maria Zapata,
Aye.
Dorothy Hargrove.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you very much.
I would
The
also.
second item is the related motion for EEF's recommendation to council as well.
Oh, okay.
I move that we recommend to City Council adoption of the pre-development agreement just approved by the EEF Board.
Second. Lorraine, please call the vote.
So Maria D, you did the second, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Dorothy Hargrove,
Aye.
Maria Sabata,
Aye.
Maria DeAndrea.
Aye. Great. Sorry about that, Dan. All right, I believe that's the end. Is there any other new business to consider? Seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting at 12:16 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Leave.